How do you feel about your personal reputation as a leader and a guy synonymous with Two Live Crew and some of the things that y'all did? Y'all were very profitable, very successful, but obviously y'all warranted some attention that you may not have wanted from law enforcement, from the courts, from everybody in between. I mean, when you think about your personal reputation, how do you feel you are looked upon, and how do you feel about how you're looked upon?
My thing is, I always looked at myself as the Rodney Dangerfield of the music business. My story has never been told. That's why I can.
You get no respect, Rodney Dangerfield. Get no respect.
Get no respect. And my story has never been really told because I'm not from New York. I started hip hop in the South. And, a lot of people did not like that, at the time and still to this day. So I never got credit for what I really done. I never got credit for putting, creating a parental advisory sticker. That's being responsible,
right?
Because we don't want kids.
Parental advisory sticker. You created that?
Yes, I created.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so people have a tendency of looking and they only see Luke, the Two Live Crew, or what they saw on the Phil Donahue show, or the bad guy, but they never looked at it from the executive standpoint where, okay, all right, we started hip hop in the South. We took all these different measures. We took all these beatings and went to court, fighting for free speech and went in there and then getting the record deemed obscene and then going to court and then getting that overturned. And if I don't get that overturned, then that sets precedent where they could then take any record off the shelf. And most people, they don't never tell that story. They don't want to tell that story because at the end of the day, they'll have to then put me on that level of Jimmy Iovine and Craig Cobbin and all that because of the things that I've done, the roles that I play. So people have a tendency of pushing the Two Live Crew, who I am, and they define me as a member of the Two Live Crew and not the executive.
Well, hell, you on the Stephen A. Smith Show right now. Tell the world what you deserve credit for. I know you just gave some examples, but when you think about your impact in the movie industry and you talk about a lack of respect, be specific when you're talking about that. What do you believe you deserve credit for? I know you just brought up a few things. Obscene, parental advisor. I get all of that. Parental advisory thing. I get all of that. But when it comes to artists, creating hip-hop in the South, who'd you big up? Who'd you elevate? When you talk about other things that you've done in terms of helping the industry, specifically, what were those things?
I mean, Pitbull. I discovered Pitbull off the streets. Trick Daddy. As soon as Trick Daddy got out of jail. H-Town, a group that was in Houston. Lorenzo White, one day, my good friend who was playing for Houston at the time, those guys, ended up linking up with him. Kid out of New Orleans, Bust Down. What we did as far with the record company, in the standards that we set, we basically changed how they did business. Back then everybody was happy to be on a record label. I remember riding on the bus with Fresh Prince and Kumo D and all them guys, and we was in Chicago somewhere, and everybody went around the room and said, "What label you on? What label you on?" And then I say Luke Records, and then I had to sit in the bus and break it down to them, the margin of money, what they're losing. So most people went back to their label and say, "Look, I want to own and operate my own company," but lo and behold, the label, had to adjust to that, and they basically gave them, distribution deal. It wasn't necessarily a distribution deal, but they just gave them label deals where they still own the masters and all the copyright and all that. So, when you speak to Jay, I saw Jay do an interview, Jay-Z, and he said, man, Luke is the Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan of our era because he taught us how to get money. You know what I'm saying? It became more about the bag other than just being happy to be on a label.
So when you bring up lack of respect, isn't that coming from the industry itself? Unlike for somebody like me, I can sit here and talk to you all day and you'll teach me the music business because I never knew. So it's not a lack of respect. I just don't know. If somebody's not following the music industry, we wouldn't know. But if you follow the music industry or you're in the music industry and you're not acknowledging Luke Campbell, Uncle Luke, Luke Skywalker himself, then that is disrespectful in that sense. So aren't you really talking about the industry not showing an appreciation for you?
No question about it. The Vibe magazines, everybody. You been to Freaknik, you've been to different
Yes, I
places.
have.
You know hip hop like you know hip hop. But just like you said, I can sit here and tell you stories about things that I invented and I created, from a hip hop standpoint, and that you don't know about.
Right.
Because they never told my story. If they told my story,
But why wouldn't they tell your story?
I just got honored a few years ago by BET,
Mm-hmm.
and they gave me a Lifetime Achievement Award. And I got honored because Connie Orlando took over for Stephen Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Hill would never honor me. He would never.
Stephen Hill, the former boss of BT.
Former boss. He would never honor me. He wouldn't because I was an outsider. I've always been an outsider to most people in the industry. I remember when I did my deal with I did one deal with Atlantic, right? And I sat there. Doug
You said
Morris,
Atlantic
Records.
Okay, Atlantic
Doug
Records.
Morris brought 3 of us in the room. It was Jimmy Iovine, and it was Craig Cowman, and it was me. And Doug Morris said, you guys are going to be the next generation of running the music industry. And so we all was sitting there. We know each other. I was like, who are you, Craig? Craig was like, I have a house record label in Chicago doing real good. Who are you, Jimmy? Jimmy has this, did music, top of the line producer, out of California. And then we all started chopping it up. But lo and behold, when I walked around before I did the deal, it was a major deal that I did, probably the biggest I ever did. I walked around the corner and then I asked this lady, Sylvia Rome. And I say, Sylvia Rome, prominent, top of the line, black lady running the label. I was like, Sylvia, I'm not gonna do this deal unless you okay with that. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm okay doing my independently selling my own product on my own and everything. And she said, yeah. Lo and behold, that was the worst thing I ever did in my career. That was probably arguably the worst deal that I did. Because Sylvia, did what Sylvia did. She basically shut down everything that we were trying to do and trying to accomplish on the label. So those are the guards that control the music industry, and if they don't co-sign you, if you're not affiliated by one of the big machines, then you're gonna get blocked out.
But that was then. And I guess what I'm saying is this is now. We see more independence than ever before. We see more money flowing into and through the hands of one artist and their team after another. Clearly, with the advent of social media and beyond, people have their own voices. We've seen people talking about boycotting the Grammys, boycotting the Oscars. We've seen a whole bunch of stuff going on. So there is an opportunity out there in the modern day era for folks to show Luke Campbell the respect you believe you've earned and deserved.
Yeah.
Why isn't it happening now?
Well, but the good part about it is, it is. I looked at it as a bad thing that my story wasn't being told. But then now I'm looking like, I always been taught to take. You got to get a positive out of a negative. And so I look at it right now and said, I could tell these stories that most people, yourself and everybody else, don't know, and I'll obviously connect the dots and be able to then create and start a film company. So that's what I'm basically doing. So when I partner with Maverick and LeBron and them on Warriors, and now I partnered with them on another scripted series about my life story, and then I'm able to go with Will Packer and do this biopic that we're in heavy negotiations with a couple other companies. And then I'm able to do all these different these deals in Strahan and Prime on me a coach football, that project. So I can be able to tell these stories now, when people didn't want to tell the stories. So then they'll get them. And that is probably arguably the best way. So those guys are partnering with me, and that kind of solves that issue. I could never look for the industry to do anything for me. I always had to, figure out a way, and this way I figured out.
How much money did not doing business with the industry, far more often than not, cost you in your eyes?
It cost me a lot of money. I mean, when you fight against the Roy Orbison estate and you fight for free speech, and you got to go to the Supreme Court, you go to all them different district courts of appeal, And at the end of the day, it cost you money. It wasn't a thing of me going to jail or anything like that. I was just fighting for our rights and for free speech. And at the same time, you got Andrew Dice Clay saying the same stuff on records. But yet and still, I'm getting put in jail. Yet and still, I got to fight. I mean, I had to fight George Lucas because of the name you just mentioned before, Luke Skywalker, that they called me. Well, I actually got the name from Kenny Skywalker.
Right.
From
as Kentucky,
a DJ.
former basketball player at Kentucky.
Exactly.
Played for the Knicks, by the way. He dunked well, but he needed to do more. But go ahead. Go ahead. Keep going. Go ahead.
I know that was going to get you right
damn
there.
it. No, don't get me started, but go ahead.
They never sued him. George Lucas didn't sue him. He sued me.
Right.
Because, at the end of the day, I'm the controversial figure at the time. So, when I look at all this, man, I say to myself, I'm blessed, but at the same time, we're gonna tell these stories, and people gonna connect the dots, and we're gonna have fun doing it.
I'm reading my research here. I remember the song "Me So Horny." You obviously created sexually crude call-outs, response, lyrics, and explicit stage performances, which were unique for that period. And then I'm thinking about how Florida law enforcement tried to ban your music because they said it was obscene, and that's the fight you're talking about that you took to the Supreme Court. I'm wondering, when you bring these things up and you reflect on all that you've endured, any regrets?
No regrets at all.
Zero?
Zero, none. It was the perfect storm. I was the perfect guy to mess with, right? Because of the teachings of my great uncle Ricky Stirp and my dad.
Right.
You got a Bahamian and a Jamaican, and it's straight politics. So when they came after me, it was like, oh, you coming at the right person, because they, I couldn't look at cartoons on the weekend like every other kid. I just sit there and read books. I just sit there and listen to H. Rap Brown,
right.
Know the stories of him, Malcolm X, all these different people, Martin Luther King. So I just sit there and understand my history.
Right.
And my uncle always told me, Uncle Rick, he say, yeah, y'all gonna be free. He said, but they're gonna have them invisible chains on y'all. Mm. And so then he would have to break that down to me. So I understood the fight. When the fight came, I'm this independent, owned black man in Miami selling these records. I'm taking the sales away from major record companies. Mm-hmm. I'm selling $500,000. I'm selling $1 million of H-Town and 2 Live Crew and all these things. And I'm not affiliated with a major. Mm-hmm. So you got to stop me some kind of way. And if most people know anything about the music industry put plenty money into the Democratic Party.
Right.
They dumped tons of money into that party, and so now it became the war on stopping me. Mm-hmm. So yes, you get Chef Nick Navarro go in and deem my record obscene. Mm-hmm. You got Dan Quayle, who was the vice president.
Quayle, former vice president.
He get on the tarmac and say, yeah, we got to stop this 2 Live Crew and Luke. You don't even listen to this. Then you get Al Gore, Tipper Gore's wife, put us on a blacklist. Mm-hmm. And now, mind you, that's why he lost the election, by the way.
That's why he lost it in 2000 to George W. Bush?
Yeah, we couldn't find the Chaz. Because you messing with the wrong person.
So you messed with the Chaz in Florida? That's what you're saying? Uncle Luke messed with the Chaz in Florida. Y'all heard that? That's breaking news. Uncle Luke messed with the Chaz. That's hanging Chaz in Florida that gave George W. Bush the election. Oh, that's Uncle Luke and the crew. Y'all messing.
It was in Miami that he lost.
God.
Did you know that, Steve?
I know. I know that part, damn it. I damn sure know that part. But still in all, I say that, and I ask you this, because again, when you talk about the lack of respect, you say you have no regrets. Dr. Dre, Walk of Fame. We know who Dr. Dre is. I mean, it's something special. You believe you deserve something like that?
Yeah, I mean,
I've seen lyrics. Parents going crazy. You inventing the booty. Yeah. You understand? You inventing the booty. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, all this other stuff they're going to sit up there and say, you still believe that you should be on a Walk of Fame. You should have that kind of stature.
Of course. You got to walk by and say, that guy there put the booty in the video. That guy there fought for the right for us to be able to say what we're going to say on the record. Mm-hmm. That guy there started us to own and operating and wanting to own and operate our own record companies. Right. That guy right there is a large part of why we have the internet and being able to use intellectual property on there, because they use that Supreme Court case for that to this day right now. What is intellectual property and how that, so that played a major role. So, I mean, when you look down at that, when you look down at that star, then you could have a real conversation with your kid about who that guy is.
Because there's a lot that could not that's happening today that would not have been possible if it were not for the battles that you fought. That's what you're saying.
Sexy Red would not be saying the Booty Hole Brown. Ice Spice, your favorite, she would not be able to turn around and what Drake called a twerking, but it's really booty shaking.
It's really booty shaking?
Yeah, and Gorilla, I mean, come on, Steve. They wouldn't be able to do the things that they're doing. I mean, you see the videos.
I do. I see them quite often.
I mean, think about it. Social media wouldn't be social media today because the people walked around with the camcorders. You know, you had a camcorder and Freaknik, and when you took the camcorder back home to your homeboys back at college, and you sat around the room, they gave you likes. They said, we like what you video, Steve. So, I mean, that's social media now.
Well, let me ask you this. What the hell were you thinking about running for mayor? Running for mayor in 2011. I know your agenda included legalizing marijuana. By the way, it still ain't legal in this state. It still ain't. They ain't pull that off. They ain't pull that off yet. Okay, I don't understand it, by the way, because it's legal in about 26, 27 states. I don't understand how the hell it hasn't been legalized in Florida. I mean, I'm shocked that is the case, considering that you here, so you can mess with the hanging chads. You can manipulate the vote in the 2000 election and make sure that Al Gore loses to George W. Bush, but you can't get marijuana legalized. But I mean, how'd that happen?
I started thinking about it.
Look at I need an explanation for that.
I'm kind of happy that I didn't win. And you know, by the way, I had a stripper tax too.
A stripper tax?
Yeah, when I was running, that was part of my plan.
Hold on, I need to hear this. What was the stripper tax?
The stripper tax was designed to, you know, I looked at Atlanta. You know, you got to get a license to strip in Atlanta.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I've heard about that.
The amount of revenue that the city could have generated by all the women. Now you got to get a license. And I said, take all that money and put it to youth programs.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because they always claim they don't have enough money in the budget for this and that. But just take that money and put it in youth programs to be able to help underserved communities.
Great case, but what about somebody who would ask you, do you have daughters? Do you have family members that have daughters? Do you want the little girls to see that kind of imagery?
No.
All right.
We don't want them stripping. No. We want them to be highly educated and to own the strip clubs.
To own the strip clubs. But the imagery that you're putting out there doesn't necessarily send that message, Uncle Luke.
Well, when I say liberation of women, back then when we did Splashdown and all these other parties and Freaknik and everything, the girls used to come with the outfit up to here.
Right.
You know, and me being a Dallas Cowboy fan, looking at the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders back then was the only thing you saw with Daisy Dukes on, other than the Daisy Dukes show.
So the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders inspired the Daisy Dukes show.
They inspired me to then do what? Put the girls with the Daisy Dukes on my videos. Plus, I'm from Miami. You see where we're at. There's nobody walking around out here with a tube bathing suit on. You know, we're allowed down here to actually, you know, go topless. Right. And so being that this is where I'm from, I got to show that on the videos. You know, we have some of the top, you know, exotic professional dancers, clubs, and so this
and it would have generated a lot of money for the local economy.
Yes,
That's
it
what
does.
You're saying.
Yes, it does. So I'm a product of my environment. I got to show the world this is where I'm from. You know, if I was from New York, then I had an A train with the stickers on the side and the break dance and all that. But unfortunately, I'm not.
Right.
So it was never, and that's why I created that parental advisory sticker. We were the first to do X-rated records on X-rated lyrics on the record. You know, adult lyrics. And so, again, being a responsible person, I had to put that sticker on there, treat it similar to what they do in the movie.
So you shouldn't be seen as somebody that has contributed to the degradation of our society. You should be seen as somebody that really was a pioneer, that tried to do well for the community, help build businesses and what have you, and should be appreciated for the fight that you engaged in order for those things to transpire, free speech and things of that nature. That's what you're saying.
No question about it. Look at right now, black women back then, we were so conservative. Right now, when you look at You know, black women don't have a problem with showing their body. That's the most beautiful thing in the world. When you see a nice, beautiful black woman, and what happens,
that's
Steve,
a hard thing to argue.
And we have all
argue with
flavors.
that.
We have all flavors. We have light, bright, damn near white, chocolate, vanilla. We have all flavors. So that was all covered up before me. And so then when I inspired others to then, my God, what happened? All the white girls started getting BBLs and they started getting the lip thing and all that. They wanted to be like the
What are you gonna
sisters.
tell us next? You responsible for spandex? You gonna tell us that next? Because
wish.
you know some people, some men. It's not me. I'm not talking about
wish.
myself. I'm not talking about myself. But you do know that some men have said spandex is the greatest invention ever made.
Of course.
They say that. They say that. You understand what I'm saying? Well, yeah, I'm just asking.
I mean, the toothpick bikinis is what that really got me, the toothpick bikinis.
Oh Lord.